Hi everyone, my name's Mallory. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here today. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 books that I wish I could read again for the first time. All 10 of these books are from a different variety of genre, and they are all books that I truly, deeply love. These are some of my favorite books of all time. Books that I was just so drawn in by the story, the characters, everything about it was so good. So I'm excited to share these 10 recommendations with you today, and I would love to hear at the end of the video in the comments, what is a book that you wish you could read again for the first time? For book number 1, I want to start out just plain old general fiction. If you've been watching my channel and following me on Instagram, you would know that I am not a big reader of just plain general fiction. The book I'm going to talk about has some underlying tropes from other genres, but to me, I would consider it to be general fiction, and I will explain why in just a moment. My book for fiction that I wish I could read again for the first time is The Hotel Nantucket by Elin Hilderbrand. After reading this book, I have slowly fallen in love with her books. Not only is the setting so beachy and fun, because all of her books, at least not all of them, I don't believe, but a majority of them take place on Nantucket, which is just such a wonderful setting. I love little beachy towns like that. One of my absolute favorite places to go is Mackinac Island in the UP of Michigan. And I feel like Nantucket is giving those vibes in a way. So I first of all just loved the setting of this story. Second of all, it takes place at a hotel, and it's kind of surrounding a reopening of this very famous hotel. But it's not just about the hotel, it's about the people who are running the hotel. There's the people that are visiting the hotel. There's a couple other characters that I don't want to spoil anything about, so I won't get into too many details about them, but there's some really fun surprises when it comes to who this story is about. What they are really trying to do is impress a critic. So they want this grand opening of this hotel to be a smashing success. There's a little bit of mystery, there's a little bit of romance, there is some elements of suspense. It's very funny and fun, and it's just such a fun, lighthearted read that I would love to read this again for the first time. When I was reading it, I read it so quickly because I just couldn't put it down. All of these ones are going to be huge page turners. For somebody who reads books that I enjoy, I think you would like all of these. If you like fiction and you like a little bit of romance, a little mystery, but you don't want the story to be solely based in that genre, then I think that this would be a really good choice for you. Like I said, I've loved all of the Elin Hilderbrand books that I have read. I've heard that now she's going to be moving away from doing stories on Nantucket, but this one is just a perfect read for summer. I would love to read this one again if I could. The second book I wanted to talk about is a historical fiction book. I actually talked about this book in my previous video where I discussed the most read books by Goodreads users so far in 2025. This book is one that I loved when I read it. I actually listened to it as an audiobook, which I would highly recommend. And this book is Lessons in Chemistry. I love Lessons in Chemistry for similar reasons to The Hotel Nantucket. Not only is the storyline interesting, but the characters are amazing. There are lots of different characters in here, the main character being Elizabeth Zott. She is who the story is about. She is a scientist, and she somehow ends up being a host to a television cooking show. This book, though, is so much more than that. It takes place in a time where women weren't really leading the forefront in STEM related careers. So there is a little bit of a struggle for her in her career, especially doing something such as this cooking show where it's not exactly what she had in mind for her career. She is a very strong-willed, independent woman, and it's so cool to see her life change as time goes on in the story. It covers a large span of her life, talking about relationships, family, work, so many different elements that you really begin to understand her and the things that drive her as a character. There are some side characters in this as well that are wonderful. Calvin, who is another scientist. There's a dog. There is some kids in this one. There's just a really big variety of plot points going on. Lots of small details woven here and there, as well as some really big character-driven moments. This one is so unique because it will tug on your heartstrings in a way that a lot of other books I've read haven't been able to do. Sometimes when I'm reading a book, it feels kind of shallow and I don't always feel deep feelings for the characters. But in this story, there were moments where I was listening to this and my jaw was on the floor. I felt like I could relate to the characters. When an emotional moment for them was happening, I felt the emotion that the story scene was trying to portray. I really enjoyed this one. It was, again, a page turner, quick one that I just needed to know where the story was going. There's also a TV show that they made about this. I have not seen it. I was just talking to my mom and she was saying that she watched it and that it was really good. I believe that even my grandma watched it. I need to get onto it and watch it. I think it's on Apple TV. That might be the only barrier for some people. I know not everyone has that. But I've heard it's a great show. I'd love to know if it stays true to the book or if it really changed some things. I feel like when it came out, I heard a lot of really high praise for it. So I'd like to assume that it's going to be good. But I always enjoy comparing the media version of a story to the written version. So I know that I would enjoy at least checking it out and giving it a try. I'm not sure if I want to relive some of the heartbreak, though, of some of the moments in the story. But again, this is a book that I would love to read again for the first time, so maybe watching the show would be like that in a way. For my science fiction pick, it was a little hard to choose because I don't read a ton of science fiction, but then I remembered an audio book that I listened to a couple years ago, and I knew that it had to be my recommendation. That audiobook was Jurassic Park. I did not expect to enjoy the book Jurassic Park as much as I did. Honestly, I was a little surprised. I really enjoyed listening to it on audio because I felt like if I had been reading the physical pages, I might have gotten lost in the story in some of the scientific terminology and things going on in the book. I also kind of feel like maybe there would have been points that I was a little bored and I might have put it down. So listening to it as an audiobook was a really accessible version of the story. If you're interested, maybe you like the movie, maybe you are a fan of dinosaurs and science fiction books, I would really recommend listening to the audiobook version. I listened to it on Audible, and I don't know who the narrator was, but he was fantastic. I'm gonna have to look it up and see who it was, and I'll try to put it on the screen, like right here or something. He was really great. I felt like he really made the character come alive, the main character come alive, and the story was a really intense story. If you have not seen the movie Jurassic Park, or if you don't really know a lot about the story, it is pretty much some scientists, paleontologists, archaeologists, I'm not entirely sure what their job title is, but they go to visit this park where somebody has created like a land for dinosaurs, and they have almost in a way cloned and rebirthed these crazy dinosaurs from the past and want people to come and visit the park. Now, there are a lot of problems with that for many different reasons, and in the story, things start to really fall apart. They fall to pieces, and it gets very intense very quickly. It is an action-packed book, and there are things in the book that didn't happen in the movie. I felt like this was a ride. It was a huge adventure, which I really loved. It really kept my attention as I was reading it. Again, this one surprised me. I have not read any other books in the series, but I'm thinking that I might have to, because as I'm sitting here talking about it and thinking about it, I really am reliving how fun it was to listen to the book. This video would not be complete without talking about one of my favorite genres to read, which is fantasy. I can easily say that the book I would want to read again for the first time is A Court of Thorns and Roses. I know that this might seem like a basic choice for fantasy because so many people have either read this book or are talking about this book. There always are big fans of this series in general online. So I hesitated a little bit to put this one on this list, but I had to stay true with what my answer would be, and A Court of Thorns and Roses is what my true answer would be. Now, this book is fantasy, but there is a huge, huge, huge element of romance in it as well. So I cannot continue talking about the book without mentioning that. You would have to be interested in reading some spicy scenes and some romance along with your fantasy if you picked this book or any of the other books in the series up. Now, the reason why I don't think I could not include this book is because it really drove me back into fantasy books when I was in a place that was a major reading slump for me. Growing up, I always really enjoyed reading, and then when I went to college, I just really fell off with it. I was busy doing so many other things that finally after college, I picked this back up, and I am so glad I did, because not only was this book incredible, but all of the other books in the series are also very good. I am currently reading the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, and I'm looking forward to reading her other series, Crescent City, as well. The reason why I chose A Court of Thorns and Roses as my book for the one I would like to read again for the first time versus my favorite book in the series, A Court of Silver Flames, or maybe my second favorite, very, very close second favorite, A Court of Mist and Fury, is because the first book, there is nothing like reading the first book in this series. So many twists and turns happen in it. I really enjoyed reading about Feyre, who is the main character. She kind of gets lost in this quest and kind of a game that she needs to complete. She's got different missions that she has to do. She's trying to solve different riddles, and she meets so many characters. If you are someone who loves a character-driven series, this book and the other books in the series would be for you. There are countless characters, so many that I don't even know if I could name all of them. A lot of them are lovable. A lot of them you will have strong feelings on. Some of them your feelings will change as you read in the series. If you know, you know. I just had such a fun time when I read this book for the first time that I would want to relive that again. It was like I was trying to solve the riddles with Feyre as time went on. I was experiencing the relationships and the strong feelings, and her trying to understand what life is like in this Fey kingdom. I just felt like I was along for the ride with her, that her and I were teaming up doing this together. That is something that I love when I read, is when I can feel like I'm in the book. This one felt that way for sure. And some people might say that it wasn't the best book in the series, but there's so many things that happen that it is essential to the series, and the series would not be the same without this book. So because it brought me into this amazing world that I now love, I just think that the fun that I had reading it for the first time is something I would want to experience again and relive. I just love this book and this series again. I have been wanting to do a reread. I've been seeing so many people talking about how they've been rereading the series, and I'm dying to do the same. So I'm hoping to pick this one back up very, very soon. Another genre that you know I love is romance, and this one was a challenging genre to pick just one book for. However, I ended up choosing a book that I don't really think I've talked about a lot on here or on my Instagram, and that book is Seven Summers by Paige Toon. This book, talk about an emotional roller coaster, okay? When I read this for my book club, and I think I was maybe the only one who was like drained after reading it, because I felt like I was in the story. My heart was racing at times. I was crying. I was so invested in the story at so many different moments. It's a beautiful romance book. I had never read anything by Paige Toon before. This was my first one by her. I don't think I've read any of her books since, but that's a complete coincidence because this one was so well written. It takes place over the course of many years, and I just thought it was so interesting to see the growth of the different characters as time went on. So you have two main characters, and they kind of have a summer romance, and they kind of find their way back to each other every year. It takes place over the course, like I said, of multiple years, 7 summers. And there are so many things that are almost missing in the years between the summers. And so you discover along the way different things that have happened. And if you can imagine, you're in a situation where you're not communicating with a person for almost a year's worth of time until you come back together. It's almost shocking to see the stuff that has happened to them over the course of the year. As a reader, you feel that way too. You are almost going through the experience that the characters are going through. I hadn't read a book like this before. If this concept sounds interesting to you, or if you have read this and enjoyed it, another book that has a similar premise of coming back together every summer is 28 Summers by Ellen Hildenbrand. But 7 Summers, I highly recommend. It was one of those ones, like I said, where I was invested in the characters and what was going on. I wanted them to be happy, and sometimes it's so hard because life just isn't perfect and doesn't always work out in the way you think it's gonna work out. This book did a really great job of telling a story like that. The next book up on this list is a YA book. I actually just recommended this book to my sister the other day because her and I were both reading The Naturals. So I recommended this book to her and thought to myself, I wish I could read this book again for the first time. That book is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This book would be good for fans of The Naturals. At least I've only read the first book in the series for both the Truly Devious book and for The Naturals. But the vibes I was getting from The Naturals was similar to Truly Devious. It also really reminded me a lot of the Inheritance games, if you're a fan of that series. Again, I've only read like one book in that series as well. Truly Devious is a book about this girl who goes off to a school, and it's kind of like a boarding school in a way, and there's like this big mystery surrounding the school. Someone had gone missing, and there was something that was just left unsolved about the case. And so this girl and some other people from the school are kind of like going undercover in a way to try to figure out what happened. And I read this book in a day. That's how good it was. That's how invested in the story I was. It just captured me in a really fun way. This is another book that I just had a lot of fun reading it. I think that this is a book that doesn't always get recommended. It was not one that I had really ever heard of before. It was just one that was on the shelf at the bookstore and had one of those little cards by it that was like, booksellers recommend this book, and it explained why their bookseller thought it was really great. It was one that I just picked up that way, and it ended up surprising me in a really awesome way. It is fast-paced because it's YA. I really like that about YA books, is they're very quick and easy to read. I would totally recommend this to somebody who enjoys mystery and maybe doesn't enjoy such an intense mystery as like The Naturals. That one, when I read the first book, there were moments where I was like, whoa. So this one is definitely for a more tame audience, but still has a lot of really mysterious and intense moments in it. A book that I think everyone should read once in their life is actually a children's book. The story I wish I could read again for the first time as a children's book is Wonder. I don't know if you've read Wonder. I don't know if you've seen the movie for Wonder. But if you haven't, you need to. This book is so powerful and moving. The main character is Augie, and he's going into 5th grade, but he has some facial abnormalities, and people just can't seem to get past it. He wants them to understand who he is as a person. He wants to make friends, and yet this is something that's kind of in his way. It's a challenge for him, a difficulty that he's trying to overcome. You get to see him navigating different friendships. You get to see the ways that kids open up and get to know him and accept them into their lives. You also get to see some thoughts from his sister. I like how you get to understand more than just his character. You really get into the minds of a couple different people. I think that this book is just so beautiful because it's such a great message on treating others with kindness and respect, no matter who they are or what they seem to be on the outside. I think this is just a really, like I said, a really beautiful story. R.J. Palacio writes it in a really great way as well. The movie version is also very well done. It stays true to the storyline. This one is emotional. It'll have you feeling all of the feels. You will be on Team Augie 100%. He's just such a wonderful, caring, sweet boy. And to see the different things that he has to go through, following his journey is just so wholesome and will warm your heart in a way that not many other children's books can do. It is very deep. And I do think that it is a book that kids should read. Now, I've made it through just about all of the major genres, so I wanted to kind of go off of genres for a moment, and I wanted to share a series that I wish I could read for the first time again, and that is the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. This is a hockey romance series. It is spicy. It has elements of found family in it. The main characters of each book are different people from this big friend group and hockey team. So if you enjoy series where you get to read about one couple's story but then see them pop up in different stories afterwards, like something like the Windy City series, I would highly recommend this one for you. All 5 of the books in the series have really different storylines. You can tell that they are related books, but these storylines are all a little bit different. It never quite gets old, at least for me it didn't. And I just really enjoy checking in on different couples as the series goes on. Seeing them pop up and come back is always really fun for me. So I really like that element. There are 5 different books in the series, and all of them have something a little bit different going on. There's some different tropes in there. I do think that if you're going to read this series, you should start with book number 1. Some book series, it's like, oh, one of the books isn't as good as the others, and so you can kind of skip it. For this one, I think that it's just such a fun friend group that I would recommend reading all 5 and reading them in the order that they were released. It's a great romance series. They're not super long books, and so it's pretty easy to get through them. This is a series that I don't really hear a lot of people talking about. Usually I hear about series like the Boys of Tommen series, which is also very good, or I hear about like fantasy romance series. So number 1 in the series has a fake dating trope. Book number 2 is a second chance romance. Number 3 in the series is a secret relationship. And number 4 has an accidental pregnancy trope. And lastly, number 5 in the series is kind of a catch-up on what has been going on with the 4 main couples, like after their books have ended. I also really liked that it took place during college. I just think that's such a fun time period in your life. So it's kind of fun to either see that through their eyes, experience what they're going through, or maybe it's something that you can relate to. One of my favorite graphic novel series is the Scott Pilgrim series, and that is something that I wish I could live through again for the first time as well. I really enjoy reading graphic novels. I have a lot of graphic novels that I would recommend. There's things like the Lore Olympus series, the Heartstopper series, but none of those can quite touch the fun that I have when I have read the Scott Pilgrim series. If you know anything about this series, you know just how enjoyable and how much energy it has. It surrounds a boy named Scott, and he has a lot going on in his life. He's in a band, he's got this girl that he's seeing, and he has this crazy funny roommate. His sister is always giving him a hard time, and one day he meets this mysterious girl, and he wants to date her, but she says that he has to defeat her 7 evil exes before he can be with her. So this story feels a lot like a video game. It's super fun, and I love the graphic novels because they really look so cool on the page. They have all these little pop-ups, things that you might experience in a video game. The movie version is fantastic. It really covers the book series well. Each book in the series is him trying to defeat one of the exes. So that is such a really unique experience trying to see him go through this journey. I love all of the side characters in this one. The like final boss main villain in the stories is a really good villain as well. I really enjoyed this, and this is another one where it's just like I had such a fun time reading it for the first time. I would want to experience that again. Also, if you haven't watched the movie is fantastic whether you have read the book series or not. It's super fun. The final book that I wanted to talk about today is a nonfiction book, and this is another book that I've talked about recently from that Goodreads list. It is a memoir written by Michelle Zauner called Crying in H Mart. This is a book that she wrote about her mom, and especially about the last few years of her mom's life as she struggled with cancer. Michelle was there living with her, taking care of her, and trying to spend as much time with her as she could before she passed away. This was a very beautiful, heart-wrenching story. It was very emotional. It talked a lot about relationships between mothers and daughters, especially ones that are outside of American culture. I thought it was a really unique and interesting perspective to read from a culture that is not my own. I felt like I learned a lot about the importance of food and cooking. That was a huge theme in this story. I really enjoyed hearing all about these special recipes and special ingredients. It was something that her and her mom could really bond over, and I thought it was so beautiful how Michelle talked about that a lot in the story. If you don't know anything about her, she is a musician in a band called Japanese Breakfast. So it really did combine some different areas of her life into this one story. I thought it was a beautiful way to honor and remember her mom and get her mom's story out there in the world. It made me cry, it made me smile, it made me feel so many different emotions. Like I said, it was just a beautifully told story. And I feel like it was a story that she wanted to share not only for her mom, but also for herself. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about these 10 different books, and I hope that you will go and check them out yourself. I highly recommend any of these choices, and I wish that I could read them again for the first time. That's how much I loved them. Let me know in the comments what your recommendation would be of a book that you wish you could read again for the first time. Have you read any of these books that I recommended, and would you agree that they are some of the best of the best? Thanks for checking out my video today. I hope that you will subscribe, like, and stick around for some more bookish videos. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye!